All right, welcome to Chapter 6, Protein. I think we think of protein as being really important for this particular reason right here, but we'll find out from this chapter there's many other reasons we eat protein. So just as a brief overview, this chapter is pretty standard. There's nothing extra due this week, just the normal requirements. So just the overview would be first we'll look at the structure of the amino acids. We'll notice that there's a lot alike. Of the 21 amino acids, they look a lot alike. There's just one thing that's different, and we call it the R group. This part will change. So each amino acid has a different tag, depending on a different action, depending on what that R group is. That's one of the main differences. And then another thing we'll talk about is just how our body synthesized protein, how it's made. It's different than, of course, carbohydrates and fats. So this other macronutrient, this is the last one we're talking about, protein, is coded by our DNA. And so you'll learn some of the methods of how transcription occurs, translation occurs, and how we produce new proteins in our body, which is pretty interesting. And there's a video you can watch for that. Another area that this chapters talk about is looking at complementary proteins. So if you decide to go on a vegan diet or vegetarian diet, how do you know if you're getting the right combinations of amino acids? So amino acids are the building blocks of protein, and there's 21 of them altogether, but there's 9 that we have to ingest in order to make all 21. So there's this idea about limiting proteins, and how do we know? For instance, in this slide, you can see that if you get a legume like beans and you mix it with a rice, a cereal product, legumes are deficient or low in methionine, but cereals like rice are low in lysine. So by combining a legume and a cereal, you get what we call a complementary protein or a complete protein. So it's a high quality protein that will ensure that you're getting what you need. And then we'll look at digestion of protein. It's not as nearly as complicated as fat, but our body does require a couple hormones like gastrin, and we talked about, I think, another one, CCK. So this just talks about where the protein, which is mostly begun to be broke down in the stomach, unusual, unlike the other 2 macronutrients, because the stomach of the HCl is so low. But that's required because the peptide bonds in proteins are very difficult to break and require a very low pH. Another thing we might look at are the jobs of protein, like what are the functions of protein in our body. So it's a building block. It maintains fluid balance. It's part of the hormone and enzyme structure. It's important for immunity. It helps with satiety. It transports nutrients and minerals like iron. And one of the last things we'll look at here briefly is we'll talk about how we can use energy as a protein source. We can use, if we need, you can use protein for energy. It's not recommended because then your only storage of protein is in your tissues and in your muscles, so you would break those down to get energy. There's 3 segments of slides. This is the last segment, which is a short one, where we'll talk about protein, calorie malnutrition. So what happens if we don't have enough protein? There's other diseases too, but there's a couple major ones, kwashiorkor, marasmus we'll learn about, and why these different symptoms occur for these 2 protein calorie deficiencies. So that's it. This time, there's 3 sets of slides and 3 sets of questions due on the regular dates. Next week, there is a discussion that will be a little different than normal, but this week is all as planned. Okay, thank you.